Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Richard Gage, AIA, 30-year architect, member of the American Institute of Architects, and founder of the nonprofit organization Architects and Engineers for 911Truth. I'm joined by my colleague Barbara Honegger, board member of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, former White House official and Department of Defense senior military affairs journalist, who will be speaking in just a moment. We're here today to obtain 9/11 justice, every nation, every citizen, on behalf of the victims and family members of 9/11 terrorist attacks in every country. Europe lost 122 on 9/11 and thousands of soldiers in the 9/11 wars that followed. AE911Truth now represents nearly 3,000 architects and engineers, collectively more than 30,000 years of building and technical experience, who have signed our petition demanding a new investigation of the destruction of all 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers on 9/11. Barbara Honegger will now address the critical relevance to Europe for the recent historic filing of the 9/11 Grand Jury Petition for a real investigation of the World Trade Center events on 9/11.
Thank you so much for everyone being here. We have a very serious reason for being here in the heart of NATO, in the heart of the European Union. I am a board member of a relatively new organization called the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We have around 35 attorneys, very dedicated attorneys, including whistleblower attorneys who have been very successful in whistleblower cases in the United States, and attorneys from all kinds of law practice. There are a number of us in the attorneys group that are professional researchers, and I am one of them. I am also I've been a senior military affairs journalist for the United States Department of Defense, as Richard noted, and therefore it's that expertise that I bring to the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. And for the last 2 years approximately, I was also on the petition, the Grand Jury Petition. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I will. The Grand Jury Petition that was just recently filed on April 10th with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. And I'm going to be getting into more of the details of that in a moment, because it is truly a historic event. The Lawyers Committee, we have one major purpose, and that is to identify the real perpetrators of the attacks of 9/11, because the 9/11Truth movement, myself and Richard Gage and others who have been in this movement as serious forensic researchers for over a decade, we have proven that the official story of who attacked our country, the United States, is not true. And therefore, we are here in the heart of NATO to strengthen NATO, because the very first invocation, the first evoking of the Article 5 Mutual Defense Article of the NATO Treaty was based upon the official narrative of who attacked our country on 9/11. And because it is a lie, and because people around the world, there is growing awareness that it is a lie, we do not want NATO to be weakened because of it. People need to know the truth, but we need to reestablish our Atlantic Alliance based upon the facts and not upon the lie of who attacked our country. So what's on the screen now is the logo for the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, of which I'm a board member, and was on the Grand Jury Petition Drafting Committee. So I'm going to briefly go over the historical context for this official filing that was on April 10th of the 9/11 Grand Jury Petition by the Lawyers Committee. And the focus is on World Trade Centers 1, 2, and 7, what really happened on 9/11 at the World Trade Center complex. We filed it with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. And the reason for that is the federal court jurisdiction for the World Trade Center complex in Lower Manhattan. So I'm now going to briefly review the official U.S. government and NATO actions in the immediate wake of 9/11 to give the historical context for our grand jury petition filing just about a month ago. So the first and to date only invoking of Article 5, the Mutual Defense Article of the NATO Treaty, was literally a few days after the 9/11 attacks. And as I mentioned, it's based upon the official false narrative of who attacked our country. We will be getting into the proof that that narrative is false. And as you may know, almost exactly a year ago, believe it or not, the Secretary General, Mr. Stoltenberg, of the NATO, and our President, President Donald Trump, and this is a photograph, I believe it's on the screen, yes, held a inaugural ceremony of this memorial. It is officially called the 9/11 and Article 5 Memorial. It is on the grounds of the plaza at the new NATO headquarters here in Brussels, Belgium. And on this memorial is an actual piece of the steel from the World Trade Center. And Richard Gage is going to be addressing why the official story of what happened at the World Trade Center is false. Many people don't know, most people believe that almost every one of the nearly 3,000 victims of the 9/11 attacks, in the 4 separate attacks, together both in the planes and in the buildings, most people believe that all or almost all were American citizens. That is true. However, there were citizens also from all of these countries across the world, most of whom died at the World Trade Center. These are all of the non-US 9/11 victims, 372. There were 122, as Richard mentioned, European victims alone. In the United States, in the immediate wake of 9/11, as I recall, on the 14th of September, only 3 days afterwards, the United States Congress, based upon the assurance by the Bush-Cheney administration, based upon the Bush-Cheney administration's assurance that their narrative of who attacked our country on 9/11, allegedly bin Laden as a mastermind, and 19 alleged hijackers who were on the 4 alleged planes that allegedly hit the buildings or crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Based upon that narrative, only days after 9/11, the U.S. Congress was pressured into passing what is called, it's a law, which is still on the books in the United States. It's called the Authorization for the Use of Military Force. And that is an acronym, an abbreviation, AUMF. The pretext, of course, was to retaliate against those our government, our executive branch, the presidency, claimed attacked our country. There were 2,977 victims, not counting the 19 alleged hijackers, and the authorization for military force also has very important clause. It says, or who harbored those who did attack the United States. And of course, that was the official narrative that was being put out by the Bush-Cheney administration only days after 9/11, immediately after, that it was the Taliban in Afghanistan that was harboring bin Laden, who in turn was the alleged mastermind of 9/11. The authorization for the use of military force must be renewed or amended by the act of Congress every 4 years, and it is actually up in the immediate future. To this day, while we're having this press conference here in Brussels, Belgium, on the 14th of May, 2018, to this very day, the authorization for the use of military force, the United States federal statute, federal law, based upon the official lie of who attacked our people on 9/11, is still the pretext, over 17 years later, for every one of the 9/11 wars. What do I mean by that? The wars that are based upon the lie of who attacked our country on 9/11. It's also the pretext for mass surveillance police state measures, not only across the United States, but also throughout the NATO nations.